Welcome back to the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Max Renk. Today, we're diving into a topic that doesn't always get the spotlight, but plays a critical role in a lot of operations: alfalfa. More specifically, we're talking about winter kill and winter injury, and what that means for your fields as you head into the growing season. Alfalfa is a high-value crop with benefits that go beyond just yield, like nutrition to soil health and rotation advantages. But like any perennial crop, how it comes out of winter can have a big impact on performance for the rest of the year. Joining me today are two voices with lots of experience in this space: Alex Renk, who has spent years selecting alfalfa varieties, and Bob Wilms, who has worked closely with growers across a wide range of conditions. In this episode, we'll break down what causes winter injury in alfalfa, how to evaluate your stands, and what management decisions can help protect your investment moving forward. Let's get started. And welcome back to another episode of Renk Seeds of Innovation. As always, I'm your host, Max Renk. And today we're joined by a very familiar voice, Alex Renk, as well as a new guest, Bob Wilms. And Bob, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hi, I'm Bob Wilms from Renk Seed up in northeastern Wisconsin. I live in Winneconne, Wisconsin. Green Bay, I suppose, would be the center of my universe. It would kind of be the
frozen tundra.
Yeah, the focal point of like where everything seems to happen. I go all the way up to like the UP, down to like Sheboygan, across to Fond du Lac. That would kind of define the empire, so to speak.
And for Bob's empire, how many years have you been with Renk now, Bob?
Well, I actually, if you're be really official about it, I actually started working with Jeff in 1991 in research, but then as a district manager since 1994.
Okay.
And so that's, in today's world, a long time.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about something new and different. And for many of those listeners outside of Wisconsin, it's going to be a newer topic where I'm talking about alfalfa, and specifically alfalfa winter kill and winter injury. And Alex, can you lend some experience for why you are here today? Because I know this is also within your realm.
So I've been selecting our alfalfas, I want to say since probably 2000, let's just say, maybe even prior to that. As you get old, the years run together. So
we're going to be talking about alfalfa today, and it is the fourth most profitable crop in the United States, at least. Outside of Wisconsin and the reaches of northern Minnesota and Michigan, not a lot of focus goes into alfalfa because we tend to be the heart of the dairy empire. And so, Bob, looking to you, again, this was the heart of your empire, is that area. Why do we care about alfalfa?
Well, alfalfa is a very beneficial crop to dairy farmers. It has a lot of different attributes. You could look at it as there's nutritional aspects that alfalfa is very important to the dairy ration, and there's agronomic benefits to planting it. Generally speaking, throughout the course of the year, they could get up to 3 to 5 ton per acre yields. But then with the benefit of the agronomics behind it, there's the benefit of nitrogen fixation, so they can plant a corn crop after the rotation is over and get up to 200 pounds per acre nitrogen credit for that corn crop. So in that regard, it would almost be like, I don't want to say free nitrogen, but it's a benefit that way. It helps the soil structure. It helps manage compaction because of those tap roots. We have very large farm equipment nowadays, and you're beating the heck out of the soil structure. That large tap root should break up the soil profile and the increased organic matter that it would produce when it's turned over. It would definitely help with soil structure.
I do have a quick question. You mentioned it a couple times for rotations. Alfalfa is a little different than what we normally see with corn, soybeans, correct?
Correct. Because you'll have a 3-year run. Some people will keep it a little bit longer, and it would be a disappointment if they had to take it out before 3 years. I think most guys would say 3 years is the standard operating plan. So that also is a benefit in itself, because like you'll break up the disease cycle if you're just a monocrop, corn and corn and corn and corn. And a lot of dairy farms are now because of acres and then the amount of mulls they got to feed. So they need the tonnage. So then corn silage actually does produce more tonnage. So they rely on multiple years of corn often. But then when you do like corn on corn on corn, you're setting yourself up for disease pressure. And this will help allow that to be broken up. So let's say tar spot is our new headache. And so tar spot overwinters. So if you're, maybe it's too new and I don't know for a fact, but it just seems like if you were to put a 3 or 4 year rotation of alfalfa in a field that had a severe tar spot infestation, maybe you would be moving in the right direction.
It would definitely help.
Yeah.
And so, Alex, what have you seen over the years, what Bob's talking about here?
Well, I mean, the big thing is you get a 3-year rest from your normal rotation. Corn on corn is tough on the soil. It's tough on corn because you got a lot of disease pressure that will build up from that. So getting a 3-year rotation away from that on that field will give it a lot of rest time. Whenever you plow up an alfalfa field and follow with corn, there's usually about a 20 bushel jump in yield. Kind of replenishes that soil structure because of those tap roots. So that's pretty important. Again, the nutritional side is pretty well suited for cattle, or I should say dairy cows. Well, cattle too, but dairy need all the nutrients they can get.
Well, because more nutrients equals more milk.
That's right.
And then, Bob, so now that's a perfect segue into, I know you were chomping on the bit to talk about nutrition.
Well, nutritionally, it's a high protein crop. Corn, let's say, would be, I don't know what the range, say 6 to 8% would be the crude protein dry matter basis, where with alfalfa, it would be like 18 to 24% crude protein dry matter basis. So in a way, that helps supplement getting protein into that animal. It's very good for rumen health because of the structural fiber. With the dairy cattle, they need to chew their cud and go through that whole ruminating process, and alfalfa kind of fits that bill. So it's important to the dairy farm rotation, even with the larger farms where the acres are limited as far as how many tons per acre can you get off. They may be reducing the number of acres that are committed to alfalfa, but it's still a very important crop within the aspect of being nutritionally sound for producing milk.
For the sake of the argument today, we'll say it's a 3-year crop.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you selected alfalfa varieties over the years now, and we know it's a high-value seed as well as a high-value crop.
Yes.
What have you seen over the years, and how would you, easiest way possible, describe winter kill and winter injury?
Okay, so I actually kind of just look at it as winter kill, just in general. Winter injury, it's going to grow out of that. With winter kill, you have a perennial crop, so you can have multiple years out of that. So the risk factors for alfalfa, I want to say threefold, but as I go through them, we'll count. So the first one is you can kill them by having extreme cold. So this year, 2026, we had that extreme cold, like that -8, -9 for 2 or 3 days, and there was not a lot of snow cover. That will put some pressure on survivability of those plants.
And why do we care about there not being a lot of snow cover?
Snow cover will actually give it insulation.
Okay.
So if you have snow cover, that's usually a good thing because it'll basically insulate alfalfa against those cold temperatures. The good news is when it's really cold, it also kills a lot of bugs. So that should help on the crops in general. The second thing would be breaking dormancy. When you go into the fall, the alfalfa has put away a lot of reserves in their roots and pretty much saving those up till spring. If you get a streak of warmth before spring comes along and the alfalfa breaks dormancy, they'll start using those root reserves. And if they use too much of it, then they'll struggle when the real spring comes around.
Is that our concern then for these early weeks of March? We just saw something similar to that. Are we concerned about that right now?
I'm not too concerned with that at the moment, but we'll see.
Sure.
I mean, it's, all I can talk about is this is what can happen. This is the bad things that can happen. So I got that. Then you have ice sheeting, which is also probably more regional or more specific to certain acres. But if you have sheets of ice on your alfalfa, that will actually suffocate the alfalfa. The alfalfa is still doing biological processes in the winter, even though it's dormant. But if you kind of choke it out, I think there's some gases that are released that just actually kill the plant. And the last one, so I guess we're at 4. The last one would be if you have a rapid change in heaving from winter. So if your frost comes out and then that heaving of the soil, which happens every year to a certain extent, if it's too severe it'll actually pull the roots apart. There'll be the frozen part, and then everything else is heaving up, and then it actually breaks the roots, and that can kill alfalfa.
And this just goes back to your normal thermo stuff where hot makes it expand, cold makes it contract.
Yeah.
Is that when we see soil heaving?
Yeah. I mean, freeze thaw cycle. Freeze thaw. So yeah, you got to watch out for that. That one's harder to predict. I mean, I think it really comes down to a rapid swing in temperatures and having to have frost in the ground, which
You get these cold nights like where it's 5 degrees or something like that. But then like look at your deck. It doesn't even get above 32, but all the snow melts because of the solar radiation.
Yeah.
That could be something that promotes that heaving that Alex is talking about.
So ideally, in the fall, you want your alfalfa to get 8 inches of growth before it goes dormant. But at 8 inches, it maximizes the amount of reserves in the soil. Then you actually probably want a bunch of snow. And sometimes it's good to have a little taller stubble on the alfalfa because that will actually catch some of that snow and again, provide insulation for the winter, and it also provides a little respiration for the alfalfa.
And so, Bob, I know that a lot of you farmers in your area, they've been growing alfalfa for years. When do they usually do their last cutting to make sure that they shoot that 8 inches of growth before the winter?
I suppose it varies a little bit. Like I would say most guys are probably doing 4 cuttings. Then there's some that push it to 5. There's all types. You have the 3 cutters and stub 2. But I would say overall, most people are looking for a 4 cut. And then the other thing that I think is important to promoting longevity of the stand is leave it alone in September. And so that's when those root reserves that Alex was talking about are storing up carbohydrates to get going for the next year and everything. So leaving it go in September is always a good idea. And then I know the thought process is you can't just leave a beautiful 2-foot tall stand of alfalfa in the middle of October or something and it's a long fall. Most people, or a lot of people, will go out and take more in October.
Which is just fine.
Which is just fine.
You have the reserves.
Yeah, but then that would be like, let's say if winter turned, and going to Alex's point, where there would be stubble potentially, and then if it turned to winter, we don't ever really know what's coming to us. But that stubble thing is kind of important. The fall is important too. I'm just going by like what I've noticed over the years. Like when we have those really wet falls, that last cutting could be harvested under adverse conditions that beat up the soil, in the field. And then that wet fall will promote the ice sheeting that Alex was talking about. And if the fields are not tiled real well and there's poor drainage, it just seems like those waterlogged fields are more susceptible to not surviving the winter. And if that's an older stand, those are the ones that everybody's calling about usually come spring, like, hey, this ain't greening up the way it's supposed to.
Well, as you said, coming into the spring, it's not greening up. What are we looking for in the spring when we are talking about alfalfa?
I suppose you want to give it some time to start growing, but then when the plants are maybe 6 inches, I guess, would you say, Alex, 4 to 6 inches tall, should be enough there to determine whether it's growing. And then you would want to go out in your fields and investigate whether you have the right amount of plants. And then you would want to dig up some roots and see how that crown is.
So, all right, we're looking for 4 to 6 inches.
I think so. I think that's adequate.
Well, you're at least looking for some regrowth.
Yeah. You can't get out there just too early. Like, the weeds are green. Where's the alfalfa?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people get really too excited. And you kind of got to get some heat, and then the weeds always seem to be more efficient, the agronomic crops. I don't know.
Why we didn't domesticate them?
4 to 6 inches. Generally, we want to see some growth.
Yeah.
When are we getting out to look at these fields?
Well, that could vary from year to year.
Yep, got it. Generally, we are still at the mercy of the weather. What is a good window then?
I'm going to say, well, notwithstanding 68 feet of snow in the last week, I would say like you could, depending on the year, well, the heat that we're getting, the end of March, first week or so of April, you should have some idea what's going on out there.
What do you do here with that, Alex? Sure.
And like this year, obviously, the 20th of March isn't going to tell us anything.
Yeah.
Well, the snow will still be melting.
Yeah.
So.
But then it is important at that point to start looking at the roots.
I don't know. I think this snow that we got is really beneficial in that regard. In that, with the colder nights that we had a couple of days earlier, that snow cover probably helped to do that insulating effect. And maybe it'll just like segue into a warm season or something. Because if we did get some cold nights, because you can, the end of March, early April, have like a low of 5 degrees or whatever. And then you could end up with some heaving, because I can remember years where we thought, oh, we got through winter just fine. And then the phone rings off the hook on 1st of April because the plants are 2.5 inches out of the ground.
So it's definitely some not great moments. What are we looking for specifically? That is, I know if plants don't exist in that area, clearly they are dead.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming there are some other signs.
I would say kind of like soybeans, the roots tell you a lot of things. So digging a plant up, slicing it kind of down the middle so you get a
Shot of the crown.
yes, well, the crown and the roots.
Yeah.
If you see a lot of black in the roots, that's not a good sign.
You want a nice white, kind of almost like a potato rut.
Yeah.
You don't want to see like roping. That'd be another thing. Or where those little strands, those vascular tissues are all ropey.
And you don't want those roots soft. If the roots are soft, they're rotting.
The other thing I would add would be like you cut this crown, you look at it. Before you even cut it, you dig this root out. You want to see the shoots coming off all the way around, per se. You don't want to see like one side gone and the other side looking healthy, because that plant won't be as productive. So it's on the way out. So that means it was probably either getting old and is just through attrition, it's winding down, or it was a victim of a rough winter. So you want the crown to be circular, I guess, would be the word that comes to mind, with shoots coming off that are healthy.
Okay.
And then,
So symmetrical growth.
yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah. And then on a square foot basis or whatever, plants per square foot, you would want like 55 shoots, or I think it's like 6 plants per square foot.
Yeah, 4
to 6. Yeah. And then if it's under 40 shoots, then you would be looking at pulling that field out of alfalfa production, because it wouldn't be viable. 40 to 55 is the viable. 55 or more is really good. And then again, below 40, especially with the high cost of land rent, you don't want a subpar alfalfa field.
So one more time, under 40, we don't want the crop.
We got to consider taking it out of production.
Okay. And then between 40 and 55?
Is like it's hanging in there and it'll produce. And then more than 55 is better. And it seems to me, and I'm just going by memory now, like the year number 1, you have a really nice year of alfalfa production. I think year number 2 is probably like 2% better than year number 1 generally. It'd be like 102% of year number 1. Then it goes down from there, like year number 3, and I don't remember, 94%. And then it can go down. But what I've heard from growers over the years is, like when they're paying $250 an acre for land rent or more, some cases, they can't afford to have fields that are not highly productive for them.
Okay.
If they were under 40 shoots per square foot or under 4 plants per square foot, they would probably be pulling the trigger and going to corn.
So it's to corn almost
Generally
exclusively?
speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's because the nitrogen fixing still works like a soybean. You can get it back.
Even though they look alike, they're both legumes, soybeans and alfalfa. Yeah, the natural rotation would be to corn.
You know, Alex, I know you had mentioned that you think only winter kill, not winter injury, but is there things mid-season, once we identify there's some problems in the field, but let's call it that 40 to 55 shoots per square foot range, right? Can we do anything about it still?
Yeah. And actually, like to winter injury, I know I've had feedback, and that goes to that large land rent, the expensive ground people are farming. I've had farmers say, you look at a winter injury field. There's potential there for that field to produce that year. I've had many a time where they got nervous and they wanted to move on, basically, because that winter injury, like we're looking at it today, say first part of April, and then it's going to green up, but those plants are going to go backwards a lot of times. Like after you harvest first crop, you'll have maybe less. If there's severe winter injury, or if there's a little bit of heaving where the taproot got pushed out of the ground and it's not really that bad. It doesn't look that bad, but it will be bad when you sickle bark on the bottom and it cuts off its growing point. So they look at it from that standpoint, that they can't have land in production that isn't highly productive because of the cost of the land rent. And so when they come across a field that has winter injury, there will be alfalfa for that season, but they're already probably moving on in their mind, I'm thinking.
Okay.
Or they could also be inclined to interseed grasses into it. You can't really interseed alfalfa into it because the allelopathic effect of the alfalfa puts out the established plants put out a toxin that will not allow alfalfa seed to germinate.
So, all right, you got to expand a little bit there, Alex. I'm see you're ready to answer that.
Well, so it's my second favorite word in the world after vomitoxin is autotoxicity.
Okay.
So alfalfa, the older the plant gets, they actually put out toxins that prevent other alfalfas, smaller alfalfa, younger alfalfa from establishing. I'm sure it's a evolutionary process to get your plants to spread out over areas and colonize something new. So it is a thing. So as you get second and third year stands, that becomes an issue as far as you cannot come back in with alfalfa and seed that second and third year stand and expect to have any kind of good results from it.
So is that why a lot of the universities, when they're saying reseeding, they're not actually talking about putting your same variety of alfalfa?
No, and you're putting grasses in, or maybe another legume like red clover would work.
Okay, yeah.
But the thing is that first year, you like if you seeded in April, you could still do it in April or May of the next year. You could have a guy seed down an alfalfa field in May of 2025, and in May of 2026, I could go there and say, I think you're going to be all right. There's a lot of seeds coming. We could let that ride. But they're thinking like, well, I need highly productive land. And if this crop isn't going to be there, I got to do something now because of that autotoxicity effect. And so they may want to interseed alfalfa right away. And I have a lot of guys do that. They'll just be like, well, we're going to go in and we're going to hit these spots over here or over there. But then if it's really sketchy, they'll just start over. And they'd still plant alfalfa because that's part of their rotational. But they would maybe
Reseed the whole
thing right away. I've had guys do that. I think they could have maybe waited. But again, I think it comes down to the economics.
Alfalfa is 180,000 seeds per pound. And then you do, most guys, you could probably get away with 10, but most people, I would say on average are 15. So 15 times 180,000, I'm not going to do the math. There's a lot of seed out there of alfalfa. And that alfalfa is a lot of it's going to die just naturally. It's going to be outcompeted by other alfalfa. And that over time, that's when you get down to those 4 plants. Mm-hmm. Well, when you started, you probably had 30, I don't know. It's a lot. And so when you're in that seeding year, you just want to make sure that there's enough coverage and you don't want to have bare spots, because wherever there's going to be bare spots, that's where weeds are going to come.
Sure.
And weeds will probably keep up tonnage wise, but quality wise, you're going to take a big hit in the shorts. So, and again, you want to get taken care of that early, because then you have all summer for it to grow. You want that good stand going into winter.
And some cases they might want to take like just to interseed it to get through the season. Mm-hmm. They would use maybe like an annual rye that would maybe, if they clipped it at the boot stage, would be high protein. So that would be a driver. Or maybe they would think like, well, we'll take first crop off and just get what we can. And then when the soils are warm, well, we want quality feed, we might plant like BMR Soren Sudan grass that we also have. That could be planted late after first crop when soil temperatures are warmer. And then there would be adequate tonnage and adequate quality with a product like that. Or lastly, they could just add Festoleum, baby Alex. They could add Festoleum, which is got a really nice first cutting and a pretty decent second cutting if you have some decent moisture or adequate moisture, and that could carry them through the life that they wanted with that stand, and they would probably be quite happy.
So to focus a little bit back on the alfalfa there with all, because these are great solutions if we're having crown flutter, winter kill, and winter injury.
Yes.
But Alex, you said you've done alfalfa variety selection. What do you see is the difference in varieties of alfalfa? Like, how does that influence what we're seeing here?
In the old days,
And define old days.
so let's just say 25 years ago.
Okay.
Back then, fall dormancy was tied really closely with winter survival. Basically, it was the same number.
Okay.
And so the breeding has changed so that there's fall dormancies 3s, 4s, 5s, but they can survive winters much better than that rating would be. 5 would be terrible for winter hardiness rating on alfalfa. That's been the nice switch breeding wise. There's a lot of marketing from other companies talking about roots. I really think it's just marketing. Alfalfa, the main supplier is going to be the taproot, so you need a taproot. And then if there's restrictions as far as where the taproot can go, then you're going to get some secondary root growth. No matter where you're at, if the plant can live, alfalfa doesn't like wet feet. So provided it can grow, the roots will modulate to take that into account and get the nutrients they need. Other than that, most of the advancements have been coming in the disease resistance, disease tolerance, some of the tonnage increase. Tonnage increase is a little harder because it's a plant that kind of resists that. It's not like soybeans. We haven't seen the jumps in soybeans. It's not like corn with the hybridization. There is hybridization in alfalfa, but it's not. I think it's more marketing than an actual is yield benefit.
Is that what you see in your area, Bob?
I would concur with what Alex was just talking about, in that you want a really super good disease package, 30 out of 30 on the multi-pest index, and you want something that you don't necessarily have to have like a really low fall dormancy. You just want something that will build up good root reserves and then start up again next spring. And with that, one of the things you would probably want to do would be to make sure your fertility is really top notch going into the fall.
Yep.
So then that plant will have all it needs to carry over and get started the next year. But I do or have seen over the years a lot of marketing plans that they've come and gone.
You have seen quite a few in the last 25 years. We've seen the switch in fall dormancies. The later fall dormancies should generate more yield. So we don't really carry anything probably under a 4 or 5. In the old days, we would look at a 2 and maybe a 3s were common. Because of the winter hardiness has been kind of separated from that, now we can use much more high yielding genetics versus 25 years ago when people were using 2s and 3s, which just don't have the horsepower.
So what you're saying is now essentially with the innovations in alfalfa breeding,
Yes.
basically we can have a better yielding plant and not worry as much about fall dormancy?
That's the very quick answer.
Okay.
Very concise.
It's like fall dormancy, if I'm right on that, is, or what I understood is, it will also translate into faster regrowth like after cutting.
Yep.
So that's a factor in the yield.
Yep.
So you're getting more time growing, so to speak, during the season rather than just laying around.
Yeah, and to kind of dovetail that in is Bob mentioned that the fertilization of the field is important. It should be important for any crop that you want good return out of. You got to take care of the field. Do not put alfalfa. I mean, you can put alfalfa in crappy ground, but expect it to be crappy results. but if you got really good ground, take care of that ground, feed that alfalfa, because it will generate return from that.
All right. Is there anything we're missing here that we can really focus in to help extend the life of our alfalfa or protect from winter kill or winter injury?
The big thing is we talked about early on was the management, as far as making sure that the root reserves are there before harvesting or taking a late harvest. Make sure that growth is there. That's pretty much all you can do.
What do you think, Bob?
I agree.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no magic bullet. Genetically, we've come as far as we can as far as survivability. But if your crown gets popped up and then the sickle bar comes and cuts it up, There's nothing you can do genetically about that.
Just to summarize, maybe like all crops, it's a process that begins before you even start. Select a good variety with a great disease package, meeting your yield expectations. Then when you plant it, a good firm seed bed is important. The old planted packet thing comes in strong. Then when it's up and moving and growing, then the fertility aspect is a huge deal, making sure that it gets fed. Then the cutting management and what you're going to do. And as far as like, are you going to leave some? Or are you going to take some after September 1st, or don't go into September cutting it? You got to do those kind of things, right? And then, fertilizing it, putting it to bed so it can start over the next year with all the positives going for it. And then you're at the mercy of Mother Nature at the rest of the time.
The joys of farming always at mercy.
It keeps us out of Bitcoin.
Yeah. It goes easy, everybody would do it.
And there is that. Well, I thank you gentlemen for taking the time. As we've talked through today, managing alfalfa isn't just about what happens during the growing season. It starts with the decisions you make before winter and continues with how you evaluate your fields in the spring. From variety selection and fertility to cutting management and timing, there are a lot of factors that influence how well a stand makes it through the winter. And while there's no way to control the weather, understanding what to look for can help you make more confident decisions about what comes next. At the end of the day, it's about protecting your investment and setting your operation up for a productive season ahead. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Max Renk, and this has been the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast.
Be sure to hit subscribe for a notification when a new episode drops each month, and follow Renk on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and X. This has been the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast, innovating agriculture one seed at a time.